safe space. We ain't never give a reason you should hide. Compile all your questions, we taking the quest. Join Tarsha on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey podcast. I am your host, Tarsha Smith, and welcome to yet another week, another journey, another story. You already know to subscribe, so I don't have to say all the things, but you know what to go do. I'm not going to prolong this because I'm excited to dive into this story today. We have with us Monica Kelsey. She is the founder of the Safe Haven Baby Box. And she also has her own story outside of the baby boxes. Hi, Monica.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
For sure. So I want to dive into your story. I know that you have the book called Blessed to Have Been Abandoned. Let's start there. Can you tell me, where do we start in that story?
Well, the story starts actually from the very beginning, from the day I was born.
Okay.
When I wrote the book "Blessed to Have Been Abandoned," I wanted people to know not only the beginning but also the end, and not that it's the end of my life, but it's kind of the where I ended up and what I'm doing today. And so, for people to kind of understand where the passion and the commitment comes from
For
with
sure.
Safe Haven Baby Boxes, I literally have to take you back to the beginning.
Absolutely. Let's go. I'm ready.
So I'll take you back to August of 1972,
Okay.
when a young 17-year-old girl was brutally attacked and raped and left along the side of the road. And this was in 1972 when abortion was illegal in our country. I'm not
Okay.
here to debate abortion. I'm just stating it wasn't available then.
Yeah.
And this 17-year-old girl pressed charges against a man who had raped her, and he was arrested and charged. And then, if that wasn't the worst of it, when her life was finally getting back to normal, she found out she was pregnant. She was hidden for the remainder of the pregnancy and then gave birth in April of 1973 and abandoned her child 2 hours after that child was born, and that child was me.
Okay, so for those that don't know, this is the era, the tail end of that era of the quote unquote like baby scoop era. Like if you got pregnant young, didn't have a husband or whatever, you were going away and it was going to be hidden. And you're
You
probably not going to keep that baby. But in this case, she left you somewhere. Where did she leave you?
She actually left me at a hospital. And today we have laws allowing this to be legal. But back then it wasn't legal.
Right.
It was an abandonment charge. And so I
Oh,
look
she
back.
was charged?
Well, no, I'm sorry. She wasn't. I'm saying that in general,
In general. Okay.
for somebody that would have abandoned a child, that they would have been charged, but she was not.
Okay.
Um, and I look back on my life, and I look back at the very beginning, and I think Christ had he had a hand in all of it from the very beginning, because today, I stand on the front lines of a movement of a child that I once was, and trying to fight to keep these babies out of dumpsters and trash cans at all costs. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's not easy, but I have to stay focused. So
So
every day's a new day.
walk me through. So she abandoned you in the hospital,
Mhm.
and what happens next? How does Monica get from the hospital to, do you go to foster care? What happens next?
So basically the state took over back in that day, and
Mm-hmm.
it was almost 9.5 weeks later, my adoptive parents got the call that a little girl needed a home, and
Mm-hmm.
my mom said, "Bring me my daughter." And so um, I was taken to them right about 9.5 weeks.
Okay.
And so I don't remember, obviously, I don't remember any of the
Yeah.
time in
Yeah.
foster care.
Secondhand information. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but how I was blessed to have been adopted by two amazing parents that, every child deserves to have two parents that love them
For
and will
sure.
do anything for them. And for me, that was, what I received. And my parents celebrated 50 years in 2020. And then my dad passed away a
Oh,
few
I'm
months
sorry to hear
later.
that.
So, yeah, it was tough. He was my biggest fan. He was the one that inspired me. He was the one that believed in me and always pushed me to be better.
Now, let me ask you this, because I'm hearing you sound a lot like me when you're speaking about adoption. I didn't have a bad start. I was blessed to have two amazing parents, a great family. How old were you when you found out that you were adopted?
I don't remember a time that I don't know.
See,
So,
that
yeah,
makes all the difference. It
yeah, so
really does.
my older sister is also adopted, and she's Mexican, and then my
Okay.
younger sister is blonde hair, blue eyes. So you knew we weren't from the same family. So I don't think they
Got
would have
you.
been able to hide it even if they tried. But
Okay.
I don't remember a time of not knowing.
Okay. And do you remember a time where you began to ask all the questions like we do as adoptees? Like, do you know anything about my birth parents? Or
I
when do you
do,
start to ask the questions?
I was older. I don't remember, being, 7 or 8 or anything like that. I remember being in high school and asking the tough questions uh,
Mm,
of, because I wanted to meet her. I wanted to thank her for the life that I was given. And I really wanted to know her story. And,
mm,
and
mm-hmm.
the question that I think all adoptees want to know is why. And
Absolutely.
and so I knew that one day I would find her. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be, to
Yeah.
find her. But I'm thankful that I did find her and was able to learn her story and then also see her heart.
For sure. Can you speak to that a little bit about you asking the hard questions? Of course, you didn't know what the situation was. And
Mhm.
how did your mother handle that? Because I know there's somebody listening that might have this very same scenario. How did your mother handle those questions?
My adoptive mom.
Your adoptive mother, yes.
She was very open with us, and she always said that I didn't grow under her heart; I grew in it, and so
Mm,
it was kind of a way for me to feel special. And I'm thankful that I knew my entire life that I was adopted. I don't think that children, when they kind of get blasted when they're older and they learn something new about themselves, I think that's when the identity issues start really coming into play. But I knew that I wasn't, you know I didn't look like my adoptive parents. And when people
yep.
said I did, I knew that I didn't. And so
Yep.
it wasn't a shock when when I found out, and so I'm
Right.
thankful for my mom and dad for always being honest with us.
For
And it's
sure.
interesting too, because growing up, my parents garage sailed. I mean, that was just what we did in the summertime. I mean, we would go get our clothes and, my mom pinched pennies like nobody else.
Hmm.
I would tell people because I would put garage sailing with, them choosing what they wanted a garage sale. They could just, go pick a piece of clothing out. And
Right.
my little mind was thinking that I was bought at a garage sale because that's where we were every week we were garage sailing. And so that's what I would tell people is that I was bought at a garage sale. It's so stupid now.
Some point, your mom's probably like, please stop saying that.
She was. We laugh about it now.
Yeah,
We
that's
laugh about it.
hilarious.
Yeah.
It's amazing as adoptees, as little kids, where our imaginations go about that. It
Hmm.
just, yeah, yeah. And so I'm glad that you addressed the fact that she was so open
Hmm.
because that's a tough conversation.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were older. So when you found out what the story was, do you remember feeling any type of way, or what does
I
that do
was
to Monica?
you mean when I actually met my biological mother and
Well,
learned
no,
this?
when you found out, or did you not find out what the real story was until you met your biological mother?
Yeah, so my adoptive parents were told that my birth parents were young in love and couldn't care for me, so they placed me for
Ah,
adoption. And
okay.
only did I find out that that wasn't the case at all, that they were lied to protect me is the only reasoning that we can come up with why they would
Mm,
say that. But yeah, my parents didn't know. My adoptive parents didn't know.
that
And
was
then when
very common back then, though. They would fabricate these stories
I've
both
heard that
ways.
a lot. I've heard
Yeah,
that a lot.
yeah. So I'm not even surprised to hear that. So, what steps did you take? Because you and I are right around the same age. What steps did you take to find your birth mother?
Oh my gosh. What
I
didn't I do? You know,
know.
I was on a road. I was going to find her, and I actually stumbled upon her name.
Oh,
And
how?
I didn't have a piece of paper or I didn't have a birth certificate or anything directing me her way. I knew where I was born. Well, let me back up. So my second birth certificate that has my adoptive parents' names on it had a
Okay.
doctor's name on it. And so, and it said that I was born in a certain county. And so I went back to that county. I contacted the doctor, which is interesting because he actually lost his medical license years later, for I don't even remember, drugs or selling drugs. I don't know, but yeah, it was like,
That's a whole nother podcast.
yeah. So, but I started, and back in the day, and you'll probably remember this, you could 211, pick up your phone and 211, and you could ask all these, or maybe it was 411. I think it was, I don't know, but that
411. 411.
411. Okay. So
411. Yeah.
yeah, you could pick up the phone and you could be like, hey, I need such and such's phone number or whatever. Yeah. And they would give it to you. And so I that's how I kind of started. Was I got his phone number. I contacted him. Of course, he couldn't remember anything. And then I went to the hospital where it said I was born. Their hospital actually caught fire in the 80s. And so a lot of their records were damaged and destroyed. So I was like, what the heck is going on? And then I went to the newspaper and I, looked at every person that was in the hospital, in that hospital. Because remember, back then, they printed what hospital, how old you were, whether it was a boy or girl. So I'm like, okay, that's where I know I'm going to find this. And so I went through all of these people and I just started 411ing these people's names and calling them up, cold calling them and say, hey, my name is Monica. I'm trying to find my birth mom, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, I look back now and I think, how ridiculous was I? But like I said, I was on a mission and I was going to find her. And
so you weren't even using what would have been the white pages back then. You were 411. No, I'm calling all these people. And girl, what did you say? What does that conversation sound like? Do you remember?
I remember this is a funny thing because I remember this lady. And I was trying to explain who I was to her. And she's like, no, wait a minute. Now, who are you? It was like, I was like totally catching these people off guard, and I was like, hey, my name's Monica, And so it's interesting though, because one person that I had called, and I think I had called maybe 6 people. And I went from 2 days before I was born to 2 days after I was born. So all of those days I was calling because back then you stayed in the hospital for 2 days. So I was like, okay, well, and so, I spoke with one of the people that was in the hospital at the same time that had just given birth, and they remembered a woman with my birth mom's last name, and she named that, and she says, I remember a woman with the last name of whatever, and she says, I don't remember, but I don't think the baby went home with her. And I was like, huh. And so I wrote this name down on my little sheet and I just went on and I completely forgot about it. And then I graduated high school. I was still searching, doing other stuff at the time, but I graduated high school. I joined the United States military and I went away. And so, but I took this folder with me when I went. Course. And so I was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. And I was like, you know what? It's time. Let's open this thing back up again. And so that name was still written on this binder. And so what I did is I 411 that last name. And I'm like, I need somebody in this county with this last name. And so they gave me a number. And so I called. And so it was so interesting because I got my cousin and she's like, no, wait a second. She's like, who are you? And I'm like, well, my name is Monica. I was placed for adoption in the early 70s. And she's like, my aunt placed a baby for adoption, but it was a little boy. And I'm like, oh, crap, now I'm up at it. She goes, but it was in the early 1973. And I'm like, could this possibly be her? And she says, you know what? Let me call her and find out exactly the day. Cause I was going by the day, my birthday.
Right.
And so, she called me back and she gave me her number and I called this woman and I said, hi, it's Monica. And she says, I've been waiting for your call. And that was the start of the relationship I had with her.
It's so crazy to hear that story because just in the day and the age that we're in, right, the day of the internet, because during this time, the internet was not a thing. So
No,
we were running around here getting phone numbers and cold calling people and doing all the crazy
you couldn't
things.
text anybody.
No, there's none of that. None of that. And the fact that the people on the other end of the line would actually talk to you. Because today they would probably just hang up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hit the
For
ignore button.
sure. So that's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so take me to the moment where you find out the real story.
So, well, when I was in the military, that's when I found her, but I didn't really truly reconnect. I went and I visited her. I was 21 years old, and I talk about this
Mm-hmm.
very shortly in my book because I don't look at this as part of the story. But I met her when I was 21 years old, and she was still dealing with addiction, and I couldn't deal with
Mm.
that. I was not raised around that. I didn't know what I had gotten myself into, and so I kind of took that relationship and I put it on a shelf, and I walked away from it. And then when I was 37 years old, married with 3 kids, I was like, you know what? Whatever happened to her?
So
Let
hold
me.
on, let me ask this quick question. Did you reconnect with siblings?
No, no. So
Just her.
yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
she. But she at 37, I thought I would, try to find her again and see if maybe this time,
It was
she
better.
she had her life together. And it's not that I was angry with her or anything like that. It was
Sure.
just I just wasn't comfortable.
I
And
get it.
I looked her up again, and I called her, and she had been clean for about almost 10 years.
Okay.
And so I hopped in our vehicle, and my husband by my side, and drove up to the state of Michigan, which is where she lived. And that's when I sat on her couch with my husband's hand in my hand, and asked the tough question, the elephant in the room, if you will.
Yeah.
Who's my biological father? I want to meet him, because, you and my birth father were so much in love. You placed me for adoption because you were still, so young. And I still had no idea of the story.
Yeah.
And
And she was like, girl, wait a minute.
yeah.
What?
Well, it's so interesting because you think back to some of those moments in your life that just changed you. And
Mm-hmm.
I can remember the couch that I was sitting on was a different color than her chair. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why I remember this, I have no idea, but I remember thinking to myself that the couch doesn't match the chair. It was almost like I was trying to focus on something else
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
time, and so that was just something that's always stuck with me. I don't know. It was just crazy how I was
I get
focused on
that. It's
that.
kind of like music. There's certain songs that you hear and it takes you back to that very moment. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the brain does that for sure. So you learn this story and you figure out exactly what has happened. How does that, at what point does that begin to, do you say, I need to do something about this? And how do we get to the safe haven baby boxes from this story?
Well, finding this out destroyed my worth. Conceived in rape, abandoned at birth, it destroyed my worth, and I had to find a way to pick myself back up.
Mm,
I had worth prior to that. My mom instilled this in me that I was special, that I could do
for
I mean,
sure.
it was there, and it was destroyed in a moment. And so I actually, and this isn't a part of my life that I talk about. It's not in my book. I've only talked about it a few times, and it's out on the internet. But it's nothing that I'm hiding. It's
Hmm.
just it's not part of my story that I want revealed on a national level. But I started the search of proving her story wrong. I didn't want this to be my life, and
Mm,
I thought that me proving her story wrong was going to give me my worth back. And
that's
it
interesting.
yeah, it completely solidified the fact that she was telling the truth. And I even took it to the extreme. And this is the part that I'm not proud of. Um,
Hmm.
and I wish I wouldn't have, but I did. And I went to my biological father's house. And because I knew that the one person that would deny it, that would say it never happened,
Would be
or
him.
whatever, was him. And I got kicked off his property. I got a restraining order slapped against me. And I wasn't even being violent. I wasn't being angry. I just wanted answers.
Hmm.
And it quickly turned into situation that I'm just not proud of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I had to accept it. I had to accept the fact that this was my life, that this is my life all along. It's just, this was kind of buried.
Can I
Uh,
ask you this question? When you get the truth about what happens and you share this with your adoptive parents, how did that affect them?
I remember sitting there and my dad had tears in his eyes.
Mm,
His first response to me was, "What did you expect? Did you expect a fairy tale family? What did you expect?" Because I never really talked about it growing up. It
mm-hmm.
just wasn't. I mean, yeah, always knew that I was adopted, but it wasn't. It was never an important part of my life,
Right. Sure.
you
I get
know.
that. Uh-huh.
And so my dad, I think, was just genuinely asking me, what were you thinking going to his house? It's like, what were you thinking? And so I wanted the fairy tale family.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted that for myself, and I didn't get it. My birth mom is a beautiful human. I mean, she's passed away now, but she was a beautiful human being. She was just amazing in every way. She just dealt with a lot in a very short
Mm-hmm.
time that almost destroyed her.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but my adoptive parents, they were very supportive of me finding her. They were very supportive, but almost guarded as well. And I don't know how to
Sure. Sure. Sure.
explain it, but they were supportive. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my dad was questioning why I was doing all of the things I was trying to do to basically call her a liar,
Yeah.
and it backfired on me.
Yeah. It was like a defense mechanism for you. You're like, this can't be my life. And I need to
No, and I
prove
was like,
that's
this is
not my life.
ridiculous. Yeah,
Right.
you know.
Right. Wow. Okay. So you go through all of this, and I'm so glad that you spoke to this because not everyone has read your book, but there are a lot of people that need to understand the why behind what you do. And so that's the why.
That's the why.
So tell the people about the Safe Haven Baby Box. What is it that you do?
So the Safe Haven Baby Boxes organization, it's a nonprofit, and I started it to save the lives of these kids that are not going to be, safely surrendered. They're going to be thrown in a dumpster or a trash can because of a parent wanting anonymity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's interesting because bringing this to America, I didn't just dream it up. I actually seen it in Cape Town, South Africa, and got the idea from that and brought it back. And as a firefighter and a medic, after I got out of the military, I joined the fire service. I actually got my love for firefighting in the service. I
Okay,
actually
hold on,
joined as a
stop.
fireman.
Time out, time out, time out. Rewind back. Take me back to Africa. What did it look like in Africa? Like, what did you see? And you're like, tell
Oh
me,
my gosh.
paint that picture for me.
So I was on a speaking tour, and we were on the last leg of our tour,
Okay,
and we had spoken 14 times in 16 days. So we were exhausted.
for
And so
sure.
we happened to be at the only church in Cape Town, South Africa that had a baby safe. And as we're walking in this church, it's in the side of the wall, and it says, baby safe, and it's got this little sign above it, and I'm like, what is this, and what is it used for? And they said, well, women bring their babies here at night when they can't care for them or they don't want them, and they place them in this
Mm,
box. And the pastor gets a call on his cell phone, and he comes and picks up the child, and then someone from the church adopts the child. And I'm like, shut the front door. And I was like, does this really work? Like, is women really bringing their babies here? And they had saved 7 that year. And the first baby that they ever saved, somebody from the church adopted him, and they named him Moses. And
oh,
so on the flight
wow.
back from Cape Town, South Africa, and I'll show you, not many people get to see this, but on the flight back from Cape Town, South Africa, on a Delta napkin, this is the Delta napkin, it's even got a ketchup stain on it. I hand drew my version of the baby box, and you can tell it doesn't look quite like that anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But so
But
I
the seed had been implanted
yeah, and so
for
I came back
sure.
to the States and started the uphill battle of implementing a program that had never been done in the States before. And then that wasn't really the hardest part. The hardest part was getting people to wrap their heads around the fact that putting a baby in a box is a good thing if the alternative is something bad. And so,
Mm,
of course, we want to get to the root cause of why women are doing this. But in the
for sure.
meantime, we can't just sit still. We can't just do nothing. And so the baby boxes was introduced to be that solution for this, while other people work on what the main cause is. That's not where my focus is. There's other people that do that better. My focus is the here and now, and saving the lives of these kids.
What do you say to the people now I'm playing devil's advocate? What do you say to the people that say, well, if you do the baby boxes, you take away the ability of getting to the root cause of why the parent did this or the mother?
Well, when you look at the safe haven law that's been around for the last 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
You're right. We haven't got to the solution yet, the full solution. And I think it's different for everyone. Everybody's situation is different. There's
For
no
sure.
one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to acknowledge, the fact that some of these parents just don't want to be parents. They don't want to tell anyone they're pregnant. They don't want to walk up to anyone and face them and hand their child to another person and say, I can't do this,
Mm-hmm.
or basically, I want what's best for my child and it's not me. I mean, that would be hard to say to somebody else and then hand them your newborn. But in the meantime, I can't sit back and do nothing and allow these babies to continue to die.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last 25 years, even with the safe haven law, babies are still dying. And so you have to, I
Mm-hmm.
think for us, we have to take it to another step and allow the anonymity piece, to
Mm.
accompany the safe haven law, which is what wasn't there before.
Right. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but in Cape Town, South Africa, were you ever able to find out what the mothers were doing with these babies before they had this box?
Well, the whole reason they put the box in this church was they found a baby in a duffel bag
Okay.
on the grounds of their church, and they said that if they didn't do anything, they were not going to allow women to just throw their babies on the ground or whatever anymore. And so they decided to put this box in. The box was actually, though, from the idea from Johannesburg. Johannesburg actually was one of the first places in the world to have, they call it the baby bin, but basically the same concept as the baby box, but they were one of the first in the world to implement this program.
That's wild. That's wild. What do you say to the people that say the box itself isn't safe?
I would say, prove to me that it's not. We've never had a box fail, ever. And,
And
go ahead.
oh, no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
We've done so every box, we've listened to the people who do this for a living, the engineers, the mechanical engineers, the electrical engineers, and we've designed a box that has many fail safes on it. So if one of the alarms was to fail, another one would pick up.
Gotcha.
And so we've designed this around the people that know more than what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, we've never had a box fail. We listen to the people who are educated in this and build the boxes based on what they are suggesting. And we're also working currently with Underwriters Laboratory to get these boxes you all listed. So we're doing everything right, but it does
Mm-hmm.
take time.
For sure.
These had never been in America before.
Mm-hmm. What would you say your biggest challenge has been with the boxes? Like you're right out the gate, your very first one that you were able to get implemented. What was the biggest challenge?
Getting people to understand that putting a baby in a box is a better option than finding a baby in a dumpster.
Why do you think that's so hard for people to wrap their mind around?
You know, um, I have people that tell me that it's inhumane for a mother to put her baby in a box. And, we work directly with these moms when they call us. Last week we worked with a mom, and I'm going to say probably 5 days of working with her, trying to get her to understand what an adoption plan means, what a parenting plan means, what about
Mm-hmm.
walking into a facility and handing a child to a person, what advantages that has, or utilizing the safe haven baby box. And ultimately she chose to do a safe haven surrender. And so us telling her that that's not her best option, that there's better options, is judging her. It's shaming her. And so what we do is we
Mm-hmm.
give the options and we say, basically, these are your options. How can I walk alongside you on one of those that you choose? And then
Because
we
you
choose.
you have people that reach out to you even before the baby is born sometimes.
We do. We do have that. We have them, sometimes, and not so much anymore as what it was when we first started, but we were getting calls before women surrendered a lot before. Now we get a lot of calls after they surrender.
After.
And the interesting thing about that is now they call us and they're like, is my baby safe and is my baby healthy? That's all they want to know.
Mm.
And I got a call from, and I got to tell you, this is the best part of my job. This is absolutely 100% the best part of my job is working alongside these moms. And I text them. So this is crazy. I know it sounds weird, but when they call and they talk to our counselors, if they want to talk to me, they will give them my cell phone number. If they are
Okay.
counseling these moms, because I am that friend, I'm not your counselor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just your friend that you can just call me at 10 o'clock at night and just blow some steam. That's
Okay.
who I am. And for me, I think it's giving back because my birth mother didn't have anyone to walk alongside her. And
Mm.
so for me, I think it's filling that void. But
Yeah.
I'm helping these parents also, even in my small way, because I'm not a counselor. I don't counsel any of these moms, but I can be their friend and I can tell them that I'm here for them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the parents, this is probably probably 3 weeks ago now, but she called and a lot of the babies, the parents will go public with. And she recognized that this was the baby that she had placed and surrendered.
Mm.
And it's amazing to see how much love they have for these kids, even if they surrender them. They
For sure.
absolutely love them.
For sure.
And knowing that these babies are safe and healthy and they went to a good home really brings these parents peace. And it's just for me, this is the best part of my job is just walking alongside these moms on their journey.
Yeah. And I love that you said that if you were to tell a person that a particular option is wrong, that's like a form of judgment and they're already in a fragile place mentally already. And
Oh
so
yeah.
just giving people the option to do whatever they feel like what's best. Where my mind went when you said that getting people to wrap their mind around the fact that this is good, this is a good idea versus the worst case scenario. I would love, I know you probably can't answer this, but my mind is just thinking like, I've talked to many of people that have been left in an apartment, in a box behind a mall. Like I've talked to these people.
You talk. Say that one
And
more time. You
I've
talk to.
talked to people that have been left like one person I've spoke to, she was left in an apartment.
Oh,
Someone
I see.
found her in an apartment. Someone was put in the box behind the mall. And their mom watched the news to make sure that someone went and found the baby.
Maybe.
Yeah. So is that and I think what people are thinking is, oh, if there were more resources for these moms, then they wouldn't do that. Uh, I don't
Hmm.
know.
Let me just tell you from our experience. Okay, these women are smart. They are very smart, and a lot of them are doing the research on their own. They are looking up on their smartphones everything that's
Hmm.
available to them, and they're choosing something good, and it's legal. It's legal to surrender your baby at a hospital after you give birth. And
Hmm.
if that's what they choose to do, or walk up to a baby box and place their baby in one of our boxes, if that's legal and safe to do, and that is what they want to do, we all should rally behind a safe option that she chose. The worst thing that we can do is tell her what's best for her
Mm.
because we don't have to live with that.
That's
She
right.
has to live with the decision that she's going to make. And so us making that decision for her is going to harm her. And so even in situations where we look at from behind and say, gosh, I wish she would have done something different. I wish she would have done an adoption plan, or I wish she would have parented this child, whatever. It's still her choice. And we have to honor that choice and walk alongside her on her choice and meet her where she is. And that's honestly, I think, why some of these women that surrender in our boxes, that go through our counseling program and want to, talk to me, it's because I'll meet them where they are. And I don't mean physically. I
Right.
mean
No, I
emotionally
understand
and
emotionally.
mentally.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
What would you say to the people that say there's no scientific research behind this, and why
The,
should it work? Because there's no scientific, like, why are we putting these babies in these boxes and there's no scientific research to support?
well, we're only 7 years in. So I don't know that you're going to find much resource, but I will give you two situations in two states that have turned the tide. Indiana's one of them. Indiana is where I'm from. That's where I launched Baby Boxes.
Okay.
Prior to Baby Boxes, we were finding 2 dead infants in our state every year from abandonment dumpsters, outside firehouses. We found one in a field, one in a creek. You name it, it's probably been found in the state of Indiana. We
Hmm.
launched Baby Boxes in April of 2016.
Okay.
We have not had a dead infant in the state of Indiana from abandonment since we launched, and we've had 29 babies in boxes just in the state of Indiana.
Mm.
And you look at, so let's pick up New Mexico. New Mexico in 2022 had one of the biggest cases in American history for infant abandonment, and this is Alexis Treviso, I think is how you pronounce her last name,
Hmm.
where she literally tossed her infant. She she gave birth to this baby, put him in a black trash bag, and drove up to a dumpster and tossed this baby in this dumpster and did not realize that she was on CCTV. And so this video, if you can go to YouTube, you can view it. This is one of the biggest cases. That was one of them. This baby was in this dumpster for 6 hours before dumpster divers found him alive 6 hours later. And she's been charged. She's been convicted of attempted murder. She was sentenced to 16 years in prison. After that, 2 more babies within a 20-mile radius were found abandoned. Those 2 babies were found dead. We put a box in Hobbs, New Mexico. That's where these cases are from. We put
Hmm.
a box in Hobbs, New Mexico last April. They haven't had a dead infant since we launched, and we've had 2 babies in our boxes in Hobbs. And so you just look at those two,
Those,
state of Indiana and
yeah,
Hobbs. It's working when you work it, and we're working it. Now,
right.
are we going to save every baby that
Mm-mm,
is going to? No, I'm not going to
mm-mm.
sit here and tell you that we are, but we're saving the majority of them, and
Right.
as the last resort option. So
Right. And I'm glad that you said that. Or can we save all of them? Because some, unfortunate, so unfortunate, but sometimes people are just going to do what they're going to do. And it's
well,
not a good thing.
no, and I'll tell you, as a medic, I've went into many homes. I've removed kids from a home
Hmm.
where they were taken away from their parents. And I'll tell you what, any medic or firefighter that listens to this is going to say the same thing. We go into houses, we look around, we see kids, and we know it's going to end up very bad.
Yeah.
Something bad is going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality in which we
Mm,
live,
right. For
but we
sure.
try to save all of them, but with the understanding that we might not reach all of them due to mental illness, drug use, whatever the case
Right.
is.
Right. Right. So, my final question for you is to tell the people what you want them to know about the Safe Haven baby box. If there's a mom right now listening that's wondering, what would you say to her?
You have options. The Safe Haven Baby Box is a last resort option for moms. Make sure you're looking at all of your options before you make your decision. There's a parenting plan, there's adoption plans. You can walk into any hospital or fire station and hand your child to a person. But if you can't do any of those, and you feel that the only option that's best for you is to place your baby in one of the Safe Haven baby boxes, then we're proud of you. We're proud of you for making that decision. We're proud of you for standing up for what you wanted to do, and basically saying, "I want what's best for my child, and it might not be me." That's heroic, and it's honorable. And so you can call the Safe Haven Crisis Line and find out what options you have in your area. But call someone and look at your options before you make a final choice.
I love that. And there's nothing else for me to say after that.
There's so much more. I could sit here and talk to you all afternoon. This is easy.
There's literally nothing. That's a mic drop moment. There's nothing else for me to say. Hang on 1 second, Monica. Don't leave me 1 second. And on that final note, bye, family.
Journey on. You need a pie with the good? Oh yeah, with the store. Adoption.